Is there anything more mysterious or human than the creative impulse? Whatever the field of endeavor, music, art, science, business, what accounts for the inspired burst of innovation? The spark that flits to flame and lights the way to something entirely new. Roger Beatty became interested in this question as an undergraduate in a class that explored the psychology of genius. An amateur jazz pianist, he was already well versed in improvisation. But this was the first time I realized that you could study creativity scientifically, he remembers. Combing through case studies of Picasso and the Beatles, following in their gigantic footprints, was a way toward understanding why some people are more creative than others. There are several cognitive processes involved. Memory is a crucial one, says Beatty, now an assistant professor of psychology at Penn State. Memory is what we already know. Creativity involves going beyond what we know, but if we don't know anything, we can't create anything new, said Beatty. What's really relevant, he said, is the organization of memory, how a person's brain catalogues disparate concepts and experiences in order to facilitate making connections. It's an ability that varies between individuals. Also important is the ability to focus, to narrow one's attention to the task at hand. But focus needs to be balanced with spontaneity, Beatty said. Creative people tend to be open to experience, to seeing things in new ways. These processes and others all have their roles to play. But how much does each contribute to an individual's creativity? Is there something noticeably different going on inside the head of an innovator? How does creativity happen in the brain? Wired differently. The neuroscience of creativity is an emerging field that has attracted researchers from several disciplines, but it can seem an odd combination. How do you fix a thing as ephemeral as creativity? How pin the butterfly of a new idea to the realm of neurons and physiology? First, Beatty said you have to agree on a definition. Researchers in the field generally accept that in order to be considered creative, an idea must be both new and useful. Pure novelty is not enough, he said, even if usefulness in a domain like abstract art is not so clear-cut. Creativity is essentially the solving of a problem, even if it's a problem that no one knew existed. To measure creativity in individuals, researchers employ various tests. One requires giving a study participant pairs of randomly selected words, shoe and door, say, or rowboat and parrot, and asking them to rate how closely these words are related to one another. Roger Beatty explained, people who are more creative are able to see connections between things that might seem unrelated. Another test of divergent thinking asked participants to find new uses for common objects like a sock or a brick. One creative person, Beatty reported, suggested using a sock as a water filtration system. Things start to get really interesting when people perform these tasks. While researchers observe their brain activity via a functional MRI scan, which provides a real-time image of blood flow to various parts of the brain. In a study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in 2018, Beatty and colleagues asked 163 people to complete an alternate uses task while in the scanner. Noting the areas that were lighting up in participants' brains, indicating activity, they computed the linkages between these regions. Thus, for each individual, they were able to create a map of connectivity that could be related to performance of the task at hand. Essentially a map of creative thinking. This next step was even more revealing. The researchers put the brain connectivity patterns of the people whose answers on the test were deemed most creative into a computer model, then brought in a fresh set of participants to take the test. Just from comparing a new person's connectivity patterns with the model, they found, they could predict what that individual's creativity score would be,